I was thinking yesterday, and I was just like, this is a weird. The porn industry is at a really weird space because it is kind of this outsider culture, yet, yet it is something that the vast majority, let's just say in America, the vast majority of Americans consume porn. And like, what's really interesting is looking at like the PornHub like statistics and whatever those little things that they do every year of like what the demographics in different areas and like what the niche categories are that people search for. It's just fascinating to look at that and the intersection of liberal and conservatism and their porn interest. It's just super fascinating. And for me, I'm politically agnostic, but I just as someone who's you know, uh, vaguely like an armchair sociologist. I'm just super interested in it. But so now you're sitting here and you're like, okay, the vast majority of Americans consume porn, yet a lot of them are like ashamed of it, or they don't want to publicly say that they are, and so it's like it's this weird thing where it's like it's almost publicly dismissed or even outright ostracized. Yet a lot of those same people consume the content. Like, wh- what is it like being in that space, I guess? Does that bother you at all? Or does that duality or that conflict like just not is that difficult to wrestle with at all?
The conflict about what specifically?
Like the fact that people consume the content yet there's this kind of like social stigma to it where like people feel like they can't talk about it publicly, which
Mm,
is just really odd to me.
yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I understand it. So, I mean, I just accept it for what it is, right?
Sure.
The fact that that's never really changing. I don't believe it is. And, I'm much more of a centrist, from that perspective when I look at porn as well, right? Because, there's the one aspect where I'm in it, right?
Yeah.
But if you were to ask me, like, really, what do I think about it on a scale of, good for society? I'd rank
Hmm.
it at about a -2.
Wow,
So,
really? Why?
so if 0 was neutral, -10 is we're all going to hell, and +10 is we're saving marriages worldwide, that's about a
Yeah.
-2. It skews net negative. I've never seen, like, for as many people that'll say, "Oh, it saved our marriage." Well, there's at least 10 or 20 or more where it ruined it. So, I mean, you got to take the good with the bad, and you got to look at it from that perspective of, well, you know, how do you manage it? And I think that's really the question now is like, well, how do you manage it in society? Because, I mean, I'm probably a little bit older than you, but back in my day, it's like, okay, well, your access was, the Playboy mags that you had, right? And I mean,
Yeah,
those
yeah.
were sacred texts. Let's put it that way, right? You'd have like 6 of them, and they were the same 6 for your entire life, pretty much. Um, so it was just the dopamine hit was a lot less, right? Because like
Yeah.
you only had access to so much, and when you look at kids now, where it's just click, 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 and I mean, Jesus, give a 6-year-old an iPhone, they can see
Yeah.
whatever they want, and they will.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that I think is a big problem too, because you know it was harder, my generation to see it from a super young age. I mean, you get exposed to it a little bit, but not like now. And what I've noticed, even just throughout my career, is that as the time has gone where you have more of that exposure, I have noticed that the tastes have become more skewed towards, what's the word I want to use? More extreme stuff.
Yeah.
Just the hot chick and some vanilla porno, like that's not doing it for a lot of guys that really get into it. They start going way out there with stuff. And that
Yeah.
again, it's that constant search for harder, 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 you know.